Hello everybody and welcome along to today's video, where today I'm continuing my run through of all of Classic Who. We've reached serial number 3 of the William Hartnell era. It's the two-part, rather mysterious adventure, The Edge of Destruction. So yes, this is a funny little story that's kind of squeezed in between two big seven-parters, the Daleks and Marco Polo, following afterwards. It was essentially an episode created because they ran out, they needed to fill 2 episodes and they couldn't stretch the Daleks to 9 episodes, but they had 2 episodes left at the end of the first block, or that had been commissioned. So they had to come up with a 2-part story with no budget and basically just to set the TARDIS, and The Edge of Destruction is what they came up with, and it's a little bit weird. Now, I do like sort of exploring the TARDIS a little bit more. I always enjoy episodes where we get to see a bit more of the TARDIS, even though it's not very well realised. I really like the Invasion of Time when we go through loads and different rooms of the TARDIS. It's just quite a sort of, I think, an interesting idea, exploring this sort of limitlessly massive spaceship that so rarely we actually get to see any of it. So it's nice, well, in a lot of these early Hartnell stories, but particularly in this one when it's set purely in the TARDIS, we do get to see several different rooms and different sort of machines inside the TARDIS and everything like that that we just don't tend to see very much of in Doctor Who nowadays. I mean, although the console room itself is a lot bigger, at least has been in the Capaldi era, I think we only ever saw the console room throughout the whole of the Capaldi era. We didn't see anything, only the console room we saw in the TARDIS, which is a little bit strange. You think with having such a sort of spectacular craft like that, from time to time you'd want to go into a few different rooms. So it's nice in The Edge of Destruction that we explore that a little bit more. Of course, it's all about budget constraints, it's why they did it. But it is still nice to explore what is a fantastic set even back then, with lots of sort of interesting, unusual shapes, unusual machines and styles to the whole place. I think it's a really nice set to be able to explore for a couple of episodes. But plot-wise, this is a very weird and confusing story, and I don't think I fully understand this. I mean, I watched all the DVD extras and they basically said, yes, it doesn't make that much sense and it is all a little bit confusing. So if you have a good explanation of exactly how the plot plays out in this episode, please post it in the comments below, because as far as I can tell, it's this magical fast return switch that got stuck on, which caused them to go massively back in time, and then the TARDIS spends 2 episodes messing around stuff to try and warn them that the TARDIS is broken, or that they're going too far back and they're all about to explode, the TARDIS is about to blow up and they're all going to die. I think that's what I got from it. But it was very, very confusing, and I don't fully understand some aspects of this, like why all the characters seem to act very out of character through this episode. Was the TARDIS influencing them, like Susan sort of picking up some scissors and attempting to stab Barbara and Ian, which was very strange, and I didn't quite understand that fully, why she suddenly jumped to do that she'd sort of turned against them. Was it out of fear, or was the TARDIS messing with their heads? I don't quite understand it fully. It's a little bit confusing, so if you can give me a little bit more detailed explanation on that, I'd really like to know. But this episode is of course a very important one in sort of establishing the relationships between the 4 main characters, because it's purely has those 4 main characters in these 2 episodes. That's the only characters then inside the TARDIS for 2 episodes. But it works, I think, quite well on that side of things. It's very interesting to sort of explore this relationship between them. They finally kind of come together as a group and as a unit to kind of solve or work out what's going on, when they've been rather divided in these first couple of stories, because of course Barbara and Ian have got swooped up into it sort of by accident and then trapped there essentially by the Doctor in An Earthly Child, and through that and through the Daleks. So I think it's quite sort of an important point at which to kind of bring the whole group together and make it feel like they want to be together and want to go on adventures, rather than them all not really liking each other very much and wanting to, Barbara and Ian just wanting to get back home, and that's all it was about. So I think that works quite well in this story, and really by the end of it you've got some really nice moments with the Doctor and Barbara, where the Doctor's sort of trying his best to apologise for some of the misguided comments, shall we say, that he made towards Barbara and Ian. And there's just some really nice little moments in there where you can see they're finally starting to sort of warm to each other and be a bit more friendly, and I think that's quite nice and quite endearing as characters. It feels already like the first Doctor's beginning to mellow a little bit and become a little bit more easy to get on with, a bit more friendly with people. And I think that's quite a nice bit of character development even very early on. So I think these 2 episodes sort of play a pivotal role in sort of sectioning off or sort of finishing off these first 3 stories and the sort of arc of it and the development of the characters before we go on to more adventures with Marco Polo and episodes to come. I mean, other than those aspects of it, there really isn't a huge amount more I can say about this episode, because there just isn't a huge amount more going on. It's all to do with this mysterious plot that doesn't really make a huge amount of sense. I have to say that William Hartnell does have some wonderful moments in this story, and that little speech he gives at the end of the second episode with the camera gradually tracking towards him, although as they say in the extras it doesn't really make much sense what he's saying, but he does a brilliant job of it, particularly as he's kind of renowned for forgetting lines, and there is a little bit of it in this story. You notice occasionally he sort of fluffs some lines and that kind of thing, but with this he gets that little speech so perfectly. He kind of gets the intonation of it right, and the little sort of actions, body language he uses during it is so fantastically done. It really does feel like one of the iconic moments of the First Doctor, and I don't think I'd ever really seen that sort of side of him and from him before, because I haven't seen a huge amount of this Doctor, so I thought that was a really lovely way to end the story and really sort of show a slightly nicer, warmer Doctor, but able to give these sort of great speeches and have these great moments. And for William Hartnell, I think that was a big moment as well, to be able to pull off a scene like that so well. I thought was really impressive, and that's certainly sort of one of the highlights of this story, I think. And other than that, I really don't think there's too much more I can say about this story, simply because it's so short and there's just not that much to it. Sort of it's a single set, it's just the TARDIS, and it's just 4 characters. And there's just a short plot in it, although the plots make much sense, it's just that. So I really don't think there's very much more I can say about this, other than it does nicely set up episodes to come, hopefully. I am going to brace it and start watching reconstructions of episodes. I'm not a huge fan of audio only, so I'm going to be watching the full Marco Polo reconstructed, loose cannon reconstructions of every single episode. And that's what I'm going to do for all of the missing episodes of Classic Who. I've already downloaded most of them, so I'm pretty well across it, but I know it's going to be a little bit of a struggle. I mean, this episode did feel like it zipped along a little bit more than some of the Daleks, where it really was sagging in pace and was pretty slow. At least it felt like, although it's quite a sort of, there's not a huge amount of action, it did feel like quite an engaging and mysterious story. You didn't really understand what's going on, and I think that worked quite effectively in kind of drawing me in while watching this episode, trying to work out exactly what's going on, even if the resolution that it's all just a 40 fast return button or fast return spring was a bit of an underwhelming conclusion. I was hoping it'd be some mysterious entity or something that was behind it all, because I couldn't remember, I hadn't seen this in years. And unfortunately it wasn't, it was just a little spring that was broken. But there we go. So I'm going to be pressing on with Marco Polo and all the episodes to come in the future. This episode nicely sets up, I think, Marco Polo. As I said, we've got some characters that like each other now, and I sort of see that beginning of Marco Polo, at least when they've got all the coats and are heading outside. So I've never watched pretty much hardly any of the First Doctor story past here. I know at some point in the past I had watched these first 3 stories, but from here on in I think the only stories I've ever seen are Dalek Invasion of Earth, the Space Museum, The Chase, and The 10th Planet. I'm fairly sure I certainly don't have any recollection of watching any other First Doctor story, so sort of next time we come around to Marco Polo it will be completely fresh for me, even if I do have to watch it in pure reconstruction, which is probably going to be a bit of a struggle, I have to be honest. But we'll see how it goes. But there we go. Edge of Destruction is a solidly entertaining filler 2-part story. It feels important in developing the characters. The plot doesn't make much sense. So it's solid Doctor Who. It's nice to do something a little bit different, have it purely set in the TARDIS, just to kind of have a bit of a change up there. But it'll be nice to get onto a proper big adventure again in Marco Polo in the next story. But what about you guys? What did you think of the Edge of Destruction? Can you explain the plot to me? Because I don't fully understand it. It would be very useful if you could, if you've watched it a few times and do understand it a little bit more than me. And what did you think of the story as a whole? And other than that, remember to like this video, subscribe if you're new here, and I'll be back again with another review very soon. Goodbye.